Sometimes how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have messed with. That's me.
I am not an African American.
You're an Oreo cookie, white in the inside and black on the outside.
I don't have an afro, I have an Amerifro.
Talking that idiotic stuff you talk about, I will slap you.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Black as the ace of spades, but 100% American.
Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. The Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show.
Uniting the races with truth instead of dividing them with lies. We're also rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. Good morning. Welcome to the show. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. I absolutely appreciate it. Hope you had a good weekend. I did, and was a part of my Sunday morning services anywhere in the world. Excellent service. You can go to bondinfo.org, bondinfo.org later today and watch it. Preaching in the Pulpit coming up in the second hour. But for now, it's my honor to bring on Senator Rand Paul, a Republican of Kentucky. He is the author of The Tea Party Goes to Washington and the brand new book, excellent book, by the way, Government Bullies, how everyday Americans are being harassed, abused, and imprisoned by the feds. Senator Paul, welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning. Glad we could do this.
I am too. I appreciate you being here. I know you're a busy man, so thank you so much for coming on. I got to first say that I read that you believe that Mitt Romney has already won the election. You're the first to say this. Is that true?
Yeah, and the reason I say that is that I don't think the mood of the country has changed since 2010. I won in 2010, and so did a lot of other people, you know, with the newfound respect for the Constitution, believing that the debt is a problem. And I still think all of those problems are exactly the same. The economy hasn't improved. And so states like Ohio, where they're showing President Obama ahead, I'm just not quite sure I believe it, because in 2010, you know, Portman won by 18 points up there.
Yeah.
Kasich won by a few points. They won the state house and the state senate. So I just am not so sure the mood of the country has evolved in the other direction. I still think it's headed towards people who are worried about the debt. So I really think Romney is going to win.
I personally think that the polls are trying to deceive us, trying to kind of condition us to believe that Obama is still ahead. I don't personally believe that myself.
I think you're right, because in the last week, doesn't it seem like there's a big narrative going on that, Romney's been making gaffes and saying the wrong thing, and then all of the polls in like about a 4-day period show everybody showing President Obama ahead, when in week before it was much tighter. And I just don't think the mood of the country is that fickle and changes that quickly on one statement one way or the other. I do think he has to do well in the debates, but I think if he does well in the debates, I think that the mood of the country is still, there's a great deal of concern about how much debt we're piling on, and the Democrats in Washington don't seem to be changing this.
The Senate rejected your call to cut aid to Pakistan, Libya, and Egypt over the weekend. How you feel about that? 81 to 10.
Yeah, disappointed, but I think it's interesting in the sense that only 10% of the Senate was for cutting aid. But if you ask your friends and neighbors, I think it's more like 80 or 90% of people say, look, we shouldn't be giving money to countries that burn the flag. We shouldn't be sending money to countries that disrespect us. And for goodness sakes, we should have restrictions on the aid if we do send it, such that each country that gets it, for goodness sakes, they should defend our embassy at the very least.
Yeah, it's only common sense. I'm surprised they went against you like that. I thought that they would agree with you on this issue.
Yeah, and the other thing that's really appalling is, you know, we fought a war for 10 years to get bin Laden. We finally got him, and this doctor in Pakistan that helped us get him, Shakil Afridi,
yes,
he's been tortured by the Pakistani government and put in jail for the rest of his life. And I wanted to withhold the aid until Pakistan freed him, and I got only 10 votes on that. So it is disappointing, but I think they're on the wrong end of this.
Yeah.
And we plan on pointing it out to voters, how people voted on this issue, and then we'll let the voters decide who is right.
I absolutely agree. In your book, Bullies, I'd like to ask, what are the top 2 or 3 most ridiculous government regulations that we have to deal with here?
One of the worst is the Clean Water Act being applied to your backyard. And when we passed the Clean Water Act originally, it says you can't discharge pollutants into navigable waters or rivers. And I think that's a good idea. You shouldn't be allowed to dump chemicals in the Ohio River or the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
But somehow over time, the EPA came to interpret pollutants to be dirt, clean dirt, and navigable waters to be your backyard. So now it's illegal to put dirt in your backyard, in a low area of your backyard, and you can actually go to jail for this.
Amazing.
And we tell the story of a young woman who's a nurse, 41 years old, selling lots part-time for her dad's residential subdivision he's developing, and she gets 84 months in prison without parole, and her dad gets 10 years without parole, and her dad's partner, who's 80 years old, gets 10 years without parole for basically putting clean dirt on their own land to raise a low area of land. And this was not a pond, it was not a river, there was no ocean, there was no wetlands, there was no Everglades, nothing like that. This was not a park. This was just 20 acres of land, and some of it, when it rained hard, might have water on it. But the vast majority of the time, there was never water on this land, and they got 10 years in prison for putting clean dirt on their own land.
That is an amazing story. Senator, what have we, the American people, done wrong that we're allowing the government to just treat us in this way and take away so many freedoms?
I think the main thing is we've elected people who promise to watch after our freedom, and then they have not done their job. So Congress often abdicates their job and gives this power to unelected bureaucrats. So a lot of the power that should be with the Congress just gives it up and punts. And I think sometimes it's because Congress really doesn't pay attention to what people want. And that's why you find that, Congress has a 10% approval rating.
Yeah.
And that's also why you find them voting to continue foreign aid to countries that don't like us, and particularly continuing foreign aid to countries when we're having trouble here. We have roads and bridges that need to be repaired, and yet we still send billions of dollars overseas to countries that hate us, and we think we can buy friendship with this money, and it's just not working.
Fox News has reported this morning that the president of Egypt is now saying that America has to change its policies overseas, that they're not going to change theirs.
Yeah, well, maybe when Egypt starts sending foreign aid to the United States, they can ask us to change our policy.
Well,
but
I think...
right now, I think they, if they want to cash our check, and that's what I call it, they're going down to the government welfare office, and they are cashing a check that we are sending to them.
Yeah.
They either need to be our friend and act like an ally, or we need to quit sending them the money.
I think they're doing it because of the president that we have. They know that we have a president who's weak and apologize for American strength and don't believe that we are a Judeo-Christian nation. So I think that's why they feel so emboldened in that they can say these kind of things.
Well, we've been advertising. We just spent $70,000 advertising on Pakistan TV about that movie. And it's like, really what we ought to be doing is saying, you know what, if you want our money, you have to pledge to protect our embassy, regardless of whether someone produces a distasteful movie that has nothing to do with whether the host country protects the embassy.
Yep.
And they really shouldn't even be mentioned in the same breath. It should be, you will protect our embassy or we will not have an embassy in your country.
That's right. Tell the folks how to get your book, Government Bullies, how everyday Americans are being harassed, abused, and imprisoned by the feds.
Well, it's available on Amazon, and we've been talking about it quite a bit for the last week or two since it came out. And it really will tell you all of the stories. Some of them will shock you and they will alarm you, but it'll tell you the stories of what government's doing. We also tell the story of how people who like to drink raw milk, some of these are Amish farmers, but these are just people who want to buy raw milk from the farmer, how they're being harassed, and some of them are being imprisoned and fined and bankrupt. We tell the story of Gibson Guitar. where the feds came in with armed and automatic weapons and shut them down, took their computers, took the wood for their guitars, threatened them with jail, and basically bullied them into submission. So there's some pretty good stories. There's also some stories about the TSA and what the TSA is doing to folks. So I think people would be well advised to get this, look at it, and discover what their government is really doing.
It's definitely an eye-opening book. It's shocking, some of the stories that are in there. I had no idea how bad or how much control the government had over our lives until I read it. So it's an excellent book. Senator Rand Paul, I have the utmost respect for you, and I appreciate what you're doing for our great nation, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right, have a good day now. 888-7753-773, 888-77-JESSE.
Trying to make some